So yesterday we talked about morality and money, and a big part of how people deal with attachments to money is to get out and stay out of debt. For a lot of people, debt is a four-letter word, but could debt be moral? Is it always immoral? Should debt be avoided at all cost or used wisely? I mean, this is a very much debated question. Ramsey says get out of debt as quickly as possible. Kiyosaki says more about leveraging debt to grow your wealth. Wherever you land on debt, I think you need to hear today's story. Today's story illustrates that what you do with debt is actually way more important than money. As g.edward Griffin says, what we think is money is but a grand illusion. The reality is debt. Welcome to the Fife Movement. I'm your host, Amanda Neely. This is the only movement that helps our generation create our unique feminine and entrepreneurial approach to financial independence. So today we're going to get in the Wayback Machine and we're going to travel back to September 30th, 1941, 79 years ago. The world is at war, but in America, we've just wrapped up the baseball season, and the manufacturing of weapons as help for our allies is bringing us out of the Great Depression. And in the House of Representatives, the Committee on Banking and Currency is hearing testimony to learn more about the cause of the Great Depression, what we did, what we shouldn't do, all of those things. And being interviewed on this particular day is Mariner Eccles, governor of the Federal Reserve System. He's a Republican from Utah. And we enter the room just in time to hear Congressman Wright Patman, a Democrat from Texas, ask Eccles how the Fed got the money to purchase $2 billion with a B dollars in government bonds in 1933. To help with the Great Depression. And Eccles says, we created it. Patman, out of what? Eccles, out of the right to issue money. Patman, and there's nothing behind it, is there, except our government's credit? Eccles, that is what our money system is. If there were no debts in our money system, there wouldn't be any money. Let me say that last part again. If there were no debts in our money system, there wouldn't be any money. And this is the chair of the Federal Reserve, really, really smart guy. Now, this isn't about, this show isn't about the Federal Reserve, but I should mention that to understand what's happening here, you have to understand that the Federal Reserve, the Fed, is not part of our government and it's not a bank, okay? It's something totally different, which we don't need to get into today. But what Eccles is admitting here, the reason I wanted to share this story, is that money is created by debt. It should be no surprise then that the powers that be want to keep debts high. No wonder all the work of Ramsey and so many others to get Americans out of debt hasn't worked. There are larger forces at play that are helping to keep debts rising instead of falling. And it really boils down to the role debts play in our economy. I found this booklet, again from the Federal Reserve, first published in 1953. And they've republished it multiple times. It's called The Two Faces of Debt, and I'll have the link in the show notes. But here are the two sentences, I think, that summarize pretty well what is going on here. Here it goes. Everyone at some time or another has seen the disastrous consequences of excessive accumulation of debt by a person or a business. Conversely, growth and prosperity have flourished at times when overall indebtedness was rising rapidly, and some economic slowdowns have coincided with periods of debt reduction. Thus, debt appears to be both good and bad, a paradox that has challenged philosophers for centuries. End quote. So what they're saying here is when debts rise, we have more people buying things, more prosperity. When debts go down, people are buying less. We can go into recessions, basically. And as the same booklet puts it later on, they just come out and say it. Debt is here to stay. It's a pretty powerful statement. But what about like us as individuals, right? Maybe on the grand scheme of things, debt needs to stay, but do we need to stay in debt? Is that required? And the likely response of the Federal Reserve would be something like, well, if you want the economy to keep growing, if you want the stock market to continue to expand and fund your retirement, then yes, stay in debt. What's your reaction when I just said that? If you're like me, it's one of disgust. You want to like, get angry and maybe throw something or, get really frustrated. And my reaction is that way. I don't want my money to go to the, interest payments just to keep the economy growing and the stock market soaring and likely make other people way more money than I get to keep myself. How about you, though? That's what's really important here. Not what I think, it's what you think. I mean, if it came down to it, would you pay 20% interest on a credit card to keep your retirement funds growing at 10%? Would you pay 4% on a mortgage to possibly make, possibly being the keyword there, possibly make 10% in the market? Only you can answer those questions for yourself. But I think they are some of the most important questions you can ask. What role do you want to play in the greater economy? And what does that mean for what will happen for you? And if you're thinking, well, how do I know if I'm going to get these returns and, stuff like that? If you want to learn how to evaluate those returns of the stock market that they promise, head on over to fifemovement.com and I'll show you how to get a 21% real return instead of a 0% real return. How's that for a promise? So thanks for joining me and connecting with the Fife Movement. As you go about your day, remember, wealth is coming your way. Your quest is to prepare to use it well. For more tips on how to prepare, visit fifemovement.com and be sure to subscribe. And of course, a great way to connect with the community is at fifemovement.com. If my gift has helped you today, please pay the gift forward by sharing this content with a friend. My gratitude in advance. To help this video be seen by more people, please hit the like button and then we invite your feedback in the comments.